welcome back. This is Jarvis, and I'm here with another EDH Deck Tech. This week, we are going to go over Neyali, Sons of Vanguard. It is the face commander of one of the new Phyrexia All Will Be One commander decks, Rebellion Rising. But before we get into how I decided to go and build her, just wanted to remind you to please like, comment, and subscribe on the video. Also, you can go and follow me on all my other socials by following the link tree in the description of the video, as well as join my Discord and see the deck list in the description of the video. But let's get into it. Neyali is 2 red-white, human rebel. Attacking tokens you control have double strike, and whenever one or more tokens you control attack a player, exile the top card of your library. During any turn you attack with a token, you may play that card. So, a couple things to unpack here. One, attacking tokens you control have double strike. So we are going to be building this as a tokens build. We, as a note, this does lean very heavy white for me. Also, the cards that you exile with Neyali, they're not until end of turn. They are exiled and you're able to play them anytime you attack with a token. So, even if Neyali is not on the battlefield, you could go and play one of the cards as long as you attack with a token. So, what token generators are we using? First, Adeline Resplendent Cathar, 1 and 2 white. Whenever Adeline attacks, whenever you attack with a creature and Adeline's on the battlefield, you create a 1/1 human creature token that's tapped and attacking, and it's attacking each opponent. So you get in a game of Commander, you get a total of 3 1/1 white human creature tokens as long as all of your opponents are alive. And her power is equal to the amount of creatures you have. Anointed Procession is 3 and a white. It's an enchantment that doubles all your tokens you generate. So, for instance, Adeline, when you make 3, instead you make 6, that all come in tapped and attacking. Call the Coppercoats, a 2 and a white. Has Strive, where you can go and pay an additional 1 and a white for each target past the first. And you can choose any number of target opponents, and you create X 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, where X is the number of creatures of those opponents control. Court of Grace is 2 and 2 white. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you get a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. But if you're the monarch, you get a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying instead. Gleeful Demolition is a single red sorcery, destroy target artifact. But if you control that artifact, you get to create 3 1/1 red Phyrexian Goblin creature tokens. So, once the game is late game, or if you have any other artifacts that you really don't care about, destroy it and you get 3 1/1s. Grand Crescendo is X white white, and you get to create X 1/1 green white and citizen creature tokens, and they gain and all creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. So it acts as a mini hero intervention. Halo Fountain is 2 and a white. Artifact, for a single white and tapping it, you could untap a tap creature control and create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. For 2 white and tapping it, you could untap 2 tap creatures you control and draw a card. And then for 5 white, tapping it and untapping 15 tap creatures you control, you win the game. Horn of Valhalla, 1 and a white. The artifact equipment gives you equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control with equipped class is 3. But we're really playing it for Yaskard's Call, X white white, sorcery, where you create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. Hour of Reckoning is 4 white 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 with Convoke. With Convoke, you could go and tap your creatures to go and cast a spell. So if you have a total of 7 creatures, as long as 3 of them are white, this can be completely free. And you destroy all non-token creatures. Krenko Mob Boss, 2 and 2 red. Tap it and create X 1/1 red goblin creature tokens, where X is the number of goblins you control. Krenko Tin Street Kingpin is 2 and a red. Whenever it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then create a number of 1/1 red goblin creature tokens equal to its power. Legion War Boss, 2 and a red Mentor. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. That token gains haste until end of turn and attacks this combat if able. Loyal Apprentice is 1 and a red, has haste, and also has the Lieutenant ability. Lieutenant abilities only trigger if your commander's on the battlefield. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. that token gains haste until end of turn. Martial Coup, X white white, create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens, and if X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. Mondrak Glory Dominus, 2 white white, legendary Phyrexian Horror, acts as a second copy of a Noted Procession, but also has the ability for 1 and then 2 Phyrexian white to sacrifice 2 other artifacts and or creatures and put an indestructible counter on it, making it that the only way to get rid of it is exile. Myrel Shield of Argive, 3 and a white, acts as a silence effect essentially, where during your turn your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. But then whenever Myrel attacks, you get to create X 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens, where X is the number of soldiers you control. Prava of the Steel Legion, 2 and a white. As long as it's your turn, creature tokens you control get +1/+4. And then for 3 and a white, you could create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So late game, it gives you a little bit of a mana dump. Rabble Rousing, 4 and a white. Enchantment with Hideaway 5, meaning when it enters the battlefield, you remove the top 5 cards of your library. You pick one, you exile underneath Rabble Rousing, hidden away, and put the other 4 on the cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. And whenever you attack with 1 or more creature tokens, 1 or more creatures, you create that many 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. And then if you control 10 or more creatures, you may play the exile card without paying its mana cost. So if you attack with 4 creatures, you get 4 tokens for a total of 8 creatures then. Roar of Resistance is 1 and a red. Creature tokens you control have haste. Whenever 1 or more creatures attack, you may pay 1 and a red. And if you do, creatures attacking your opponents and or planeswalkers they control get +2/+0 until end of turn. Staff of the Storyteller, 1 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. And then whenever you create 1 or more creature tokens, put a story counter on Staff of the Storyteller. Important to note that it says 1 or more. So say you create 15 tokens, that's only 1 counter. Same thing if you only create 1 token. But then for a white and tapping it, you get to remove a story counter from Staff of the Storyteller, and then you get to draw a card. Wedding Announcement is 2 and a white. At the beginning of your end step, you put an invitation counter on Wedding Announcement. And then if you attack with 2 or more creatures, you get to draw a card. If you did not attack with 2 or more creatures, you create a 1/1 white human creature token. And then if it has 3 or more counters on it, you transform it, and it then turns into a +1/+1 anthem called Wedding Festivity. White Sun's Twilight, X white white. You gain X life and create X 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. But if X is 5 or more, you destroy all other creatures. Finally, we are done with all the tokens. Now we need to gain card advantage so that way we keep our hand full while making all these tokens. The first card is Lelia, the Blade Reforged, 2 and a red. Haste. Whenever she attacks, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. And then whenever 1 or more cards are put into exile from your library and or your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Lelia. So those attack triggers you get from Neyali when you attack with a creature token also trigger Lelia. Also, want to point out that I named this card advantage, not card draw, because it's not just card draw that you're getting, you are also getting card advantage through exile effects and also recurring cards from your graveyard. Rumor Gather is 1 and 2 white, has Alliance, that whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1, and if this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, draw a card instead. So, 1 creature, scry 1, the second creature, draw a card, creature 3 and on, continue to scry. Savine's Reclamation is 2 and a white, sorcery. Return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And if you cast it from a graveyard, you may copy the spell and choose a new target for the copy. Has flashback of 4 and a white. Skull Clamp, a single generic mana. Equipped creature gets +1/-1, and whenever it dies, draw 2 cards. Sun Titan is 4 and 2 white, vigilant, and whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Takashi's Welcome, 2 and a white. Whenever 1 or more creatures with mana value 3 or less enter the battlefield under control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Welcoming Vampire does the same thing as Takashi's Welcome, except it cares about powers 2 or less but it only triggers once each turn as well, but it is a creature with flying. Then we have our interaction. This is removal, board wipes, protection spells. They all fall underneath interaction. Abrade, 1 and a red, instant. You can either deal 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact. Blasphemous Act is 8 and a red, but most times you're only going to cast it for a single red, where it deals 13 damage to each creature. Boros Charm is a red and a white, and you get to choose one, deal 4 damage to target player or planeswalker. Permanents control get indestructible until end of turn, and target creature gains double strike until end of turn. Chaos Warp is 2 and a red. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card, and if it's a permanent card, put it onto the battlefield. Clever Concealment is 2 and 2 white, has Convoke, so yet again, this can be free if you have the 4 creatures with 2 being white, and any number of target non-land permanents you control phase out, so it's a mini Teferi's Protection. Farewell, 4 and 2 white. You get to choose one or more, exile all artifacts, all creatures, all enchantments, or all graveyards, either one or all of them. Flawless Maneuver, 2 and a white. This was also reprinted in the Commander deck. If you control Commander, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. And it gives all creatures you control indestructible until end of turn. Generous Gift is 2 and a white. Destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green elf and creature token. Heliod's Intervention, X white white. Choose one. Either destroy X target artifacts and or enchantments, or gain twice X life. Lightning Bolt, single red to deal 3 damage. Path to Exile, single white to exile target creature, and its controller can search your library for a basic land. Return to Dust, 2 and 2 white, exile target artifact or enchantment, but if you cast it during a main phase, you get to exile 2 artifacts or enchantments. Settle the Wreckage, 2 and 2 white, you haven't lived until you've settled someone. Exile all attacking creatures target player controls. That player may search his or her library for that many basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle his or her library. Soul Guide Lantern, a single generic. When it enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard, and you can either tap and sacrifice it to exile all of your opponent's graveyards, or pay 1 tap and sacrifice to draw a card. Swords to Plowshares, single white, exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. Teferi's Protection, 2 and a white. Until your next turn, your life total can't change. You gain protection from everything, and all permanents you control phase out. It does get exiled, so you cannot recur it. Unbreakable Formation, 2 and a white. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. If you cast this during your main phase, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on all of your creatures, and they all gain vigilance until end of turn. Vandal Blast is a single red, but you could overload it for 4 and a red, and destroy target artifact you don't control. Wear and Tear. The wear side is 1 and a red and destroys target artifact. The tear side is a single white and destroy target enchantment. You can cast either or both. And now we have our ramp. We ramp in multiple ways, both mana rocks and in just good old generic red ramp. You know what I mean. Arcane Signet is 2 generic, and you tap it and add 1 mana of any color. Commander Sphere, 3 generic, add 1 mana of any color to your commander's color identity, and sacrifice it and draw a card. Cursed Mirror, 2 and a red, one of my favorite mana rocks. It taps for red mana, but when it enters the battlefield, you may have it become a copy of any creature on the battlefield until end of turn, except it has haste. And the best creature to go and copy with it? Dockside Extortionist, 1 and a red. When it enters the battlefield, create X treasures where X equals the number of artifacts and enchantments that your opponents control. Felwar Stone, 2 generic, taps 1 for 1 mana of any color that a land that your opponent controls can produce. Mind Stone, 2 generic, tap it for a colorless, or for 1 and tap it, sacrifice it, and draw a card. Smothering Tithe, 3 and a white, whenever an opponent draws a card. If they don't pay 2, you create a treasure. Soul Ring. Psalm Simulacrum, beep boop, sad robot. 4 generic, when it enters the battlefield, go get a basic land. When it dies, draw a card. Strixhaven Stadium, 3 generic, also acts as a win con, because when you tap it, you tap it for a colorless mana, but you put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to one of your opponents, you get a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. If it has 10 or more point counters, you remove them all, and an opponent that was dealt damage this turn by one of your combat damage this turn by one of your creatures loses the game. Now, to keep it fair, if your opponent's creatures deal combat damage to you, you do remove point counters. Talisman of Conviction, 2 generic, and it's the red and white talisman. And then we have our good stuff / win cons. A Chroma's Will, 3 and a white. If you control your commander, you get to choose both instead of one. Creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn. Or creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until end of turn. So, if you have your commander and have a big enough board state, this can end the game. Cathar's Crusade, 3 and 2 white. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. We're making lots of tokens, so we get to put lots of +1/+1 counters places. Elish Norn, Grand Cenobite, 5 and 2 white, Vigilant. Other creatures you control get +2/+2. Creatures your opponents control, they'll get -2/-2. Starlight Spectacular, 2 and 2 white. This is probably one of my favorite cards from Infinity. It has Parade. It's an enchantment that at the beginning of combat on your turn, you choose creatures you control one at a time until each creature you control has been chosen. Each of those creatures get +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature chosen before it. So for instance, you have 5 creatures. Your first creature gets +0/+0, second creature gets +1/+1, third +2/+2, 4 +3/+3, and fifth +4/+4. And you keep going. If you have 20 creatures, it gets +19/+19, and you get a big beater for someone. And then finally, Urbrask the Hidden. 3 and 2 red, it gives all your creatures haste, and then creatures you control enter the battlefield. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield attack. Speeds your game plan up while slowing your opponent's game plan down. Now, what do you all think about this deck list? Do you like it? What would you change about it? If you do have any recommendations or you saw something you thought was quite cool, just leave a comment in the video. Yet again, please like and subscribe as well. And until next week with our next deck tech, see ya.